My name is Isabelle Lane, 28, and for 18 straight months, my family acted like I never existed until my aunt posted one photo of my condo and my white Tesla, and suddenly, they needed $25,000. The doorbell hit like a gunshot. I was mid-sip of the coffee Reed had just poured when it rang. One look through the peephole and my stomach dropped. Mom, Dad, Colton standing right outside my 15th floor door in Little Rock, the same people who ghosted me after I left. Mom's finger hovered over the bell again. Dad stared at the floor. Colton shifted his wide eyes, already scanning for the view. I didn't open yet. My pulse hammered. How did they even know this address? If you've ever been erased by the people who raised you, drop. I've been there in the comments. I read everyone. 2 years earlier, back in Springfield, Missouri, I stood at the kitchen sink with my hands buried in warm, soapy water, scrubbing the chipped blue plates we had used for Sunday dinner since I was 10. The air carried the lingering scent of roasted chicken mixed with the sharp tang of dish soap, and the low drone of the television seeped in from the living room like background noise to a life I no longer fit. My brother Colton Lane sprawled across the faded brown couch legs, dangling over the armrest phone, glowing in his face as he bragged to Mom about his latest streak on an online betting app. "Look at this Janet Lane, $3,000 in one night. Told you my system works," he crowed, tilting the screen so she could see the flashing numbers. Mom Janet Lane leaned over his shoulder, her reading glasses slipping down her nose, voice full of pride. "That's my smart boy, always thinking ahead. You'll be set soon." I dried my hands slowly on the threadbare dish towel hooked beside the stove, the fabric rough against my skin, and took a breath that felt heavier than the plates. This was the moment I had practiced in the mirror, the one I hoped might finally shift the spotlight even an inch. "Hey family, I have something to share." My voice cut through the room, steadier than the tremble in my chest. "I just got promoted to senior UX designer at the firm. The new position starts in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm moving next week." The room didn't pause. Mom's thumb kept flicking across her phone screen, chasing recipe videos. Dad Marvin Lane sat glued to his recliner remote, balanced on one knee, eyes locked on a replay of last year's Chiefs game he had watched a dozen times. Colton barely glanced up. "Nice, send us pics of the cubicle or something." No one asked about the salary bump, the 3-hour drive south, or how many late nights I had poured into mock-ups to earn it. The announcer's voice filled the gap. "And that's another touchdown for Kansas City." Later that evening, I opened the family group chat, the same thread we used for grocery lists and the occasional meme. I typed a careful farewell, attached a crisp photo of the modern apartment waiting for me in Little Rock, with its clean lines and empty rooms, and pressed send. The message marked delivered. I waited, refreshing every few minutes. An hour passed. Then Mom posted a photo of the Sunday dinner table: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans captioned simply, "Family Fuel." No reply to me. Just a string of thumbs-up emojis from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. I packed alone in my childhood bedroom under the dim glow of a single lamp, folding sweaters into a battered suitcase that suddenly seemed too small for everything I was leaving behind. The walls still bore faint outlines where posters once hung, band logos, college acceptance letters, dreams that had faded faster than the paper. Each shirt I rolled carried the echo of conversations that never happened, of celebrations that skipped over me. Downstairs, Colton's laughter burst out again, sharp and carefree, followed by Mom's delighted clap. I zipped the suitcase with a sound that felt final and wheeled it to the hallway without a word. The next morning, I loaded the car before the sun rose, the street silent except for the crunch of gravel under my tires. Porch lights glowed on neighboring houses, but ours stayed dark. I paused at the curb keys, cold in my hand, half hoping for a silhouette in the window, a wave, anything. The curtains never moved. I slid into the driver's seat, turned the ignition, and eased away from the only home I had known. As the familiar streets gave way to interstate signs pointing south toward Little Rock, a deep, quiet sadness settled over me like morning fog. It wasn't rage, not yet. Just the hollow realization that the people who taught me to walk, to read, to tie my shoes, could watch me drive 3 hours away without a single goodbye. 18 months later in Little Rock, I had settled into a routine that felt almost normal, starting most days with a quick check of my phone before heading to the office. I tried calling Mom 3 separate times over those long weeks, once after a big project launch, another on her birthday, and finally just to say hello. Each attempt rang straight to voicemail, her recorded voice, cheerful and distant, asking to leave a message after the beep. I never did. The silence from Springfield grew thicker with every unanswered call, but I pushed it down and focused on the new designs waiting on my screen. One Saturday morning, I stood in the small kitchen of my temporary rental, measuring grounds into the coffee maker, while sunlight streamed through the single window overlooking a quiet street. The machine gurgled to life just as my phone buzzed on the counter. Mom's name flashed across the screen. I answered on the second ring, surprised but hopeful. "Hey, Mom." Her voice barreled through without greeting. "Isabelle, perfect timing. I need you to come help clear out the garage at the old house tomorrow. You can handle that, right?" She spoke like I still lived 10 minutes away, like the move had been a weekend trip. I gripped the phone tighter, the coffee scent suddenly sharp. "Mom, I'm in Arkansas. Little Rock. I told you when I left." A pause, then her tone sharpened. "Arkansas? You mean you actually went through with that? You just up and abandoned the family for some job?" The accusation landed hard, twisting facts I had shared months ago. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said, keeping my voice level. "I took a promotion. But even if I were there, I can't drop everything to clean out the garage." She huffed. "Fine, be selfish. We'll manage without you." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the silent phone, the coffee forgotten, as it finished brewing with a final hiss. A few days passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines, but the call lingered like a bruise. Curiosity got the better of me one evening while scrolling through old messages for a work contact. I opened the dusty group chat, Lane family updates, the one Mom had muted me from months ago, but never removed me. Buried under birthday memes and prayer chains, I found it. Trinity had posted screenshots of the photos I sent her, privately captioned, "For Mom. She's living fancy. Now look at this view," the timestamp. 2 days before Mom's sudden call asking me to clean the garage. My blood ran cold. I dialed Trinity immediately. She picked up on the third ring, sounding casual. "Hey, what's up?" "Trinity, did you send pictures of my apartment to my mom?" I asked direct. A beat of silence, then a sigh. "Look, she kept asking how you were doing, and I figured she missed you. She offered a little cash for updates, nothing big. I thought it would help bridge things." "Bridge things?" My voice rose despite trying to stay calm. "You sold information about my life for money from the same person who ignores me." "It wasn't like that," she protested weakly. "I was just... We're done." I cut in. "Don't contact me again." I ended the call and blocked her number in one motion, the screen blurring for a second before I set the phone face down. I sank onto the couch, pulling a throw pillow into my lap and hugging it close as if it could absorb the sting. The betrayal cut deeper than Mom's words. Trinity had been the one person outside family I trusted with the details of my fresh start, the small victories that kept me going. Knowing she traded them for pocket change from someone who couldn't be bothered to pick up the phone left a raw ache that settled heavy in my chest, making the quiet apartment feel emptier than ever. Time started to heal in Little Rock as I threw myself into the rhythm of the city, waking early for jogs along the winding paths that hugged the Arkansas River, where the water caught the morning light in shimmering ripples and the cool breeze carried the scent of damp earth. One crisp fall day, sweat cooling on my skin and breath still coming in steady puffs, I rounded a bend near the old railroad bridge and nearly collided with a runner matching my pace. He pulled up short, laughing as he steadied himself. Sorry about that guess, we're both in the zone. That was Reed Harrison, tall with an easy smile and headphones dangling around his neck. We chatted about the trail, the best coffee spots nearby, and before the loop ended, he suggested grabbing a cup at the cafe just off the path, where the aroma of freshly roasted beans spilled out the door. I agreed, surprising myself with how natural it felt. Over the next few weeks, those post-run coffees turned into dinners at quiet bistros downtown and weekend hikes in Pinnacle Mountain State Park, where the leaves exploded in reds and golds, plus lazy Saturday mornings at the local farmers market picking out peaches and artisan bread. Reed listened when I talked about the job, the designs that kept me up late tweaking pixels until they felt right, and one evening, as we sat on a bench overlooking the river at dusk, the sky painted in soft purples. He turned to me with a serious look. "You deserve to be treated better than what you left behind," he said simply, his hand covering mine on the wood between us. The words landed soft but firm, chipping away at the walls I had built without even realizing. Work rewarded the effort soon after when my manager pulled me into a meeting to discuss performance reviews, following the successful launch of a major client app redesign that had taken months of wireframes and user testing. The promotion to a higher tier came with a substantial raise that made the numbers on my bank app look unfamiliar in the best way. I celebrated quietly by touring 3 different units before signing papers for a condo on the 15th floor of a modern building in the heart of the city, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony that framed the skyline like a postcard. The white Tesla Model 3 followed a month later, parked in the underground garage, gleaming under the fluorescent lights, a symbol of every overtime hour finally paying off. Word of the new place traveled the family grapevine somehow, and one weekend Aunt Beatrice Brooks and Uncle Morris Brooks drove from Springfield, Missouri for their only visit. They arrived with a homemade apple pie still warm from the cooler and hugs that smelled like the old house. We spent the afternoon unpacking the last boxes together, Morris hanging a framed print I had designed, while Beatrice arranged fresh flowers from the market in a vase on the counter. Dinner was homemade pasta with sauce simmered on my new stove, spread across the dining table, laughter filling the open space as stories flowed about neighborhood gossip and Morris's latest fishing trip. Beatrice beamed the whole time, raising her glass of iced tea. "My niece is all grown up and killing it," she declared, eyes sparkling. As the evening wound down, Beatrice pulled out her phone to capture the moment, snapping pictures of the living room with its clean lines, the kitchen island, and then stepping onto the balcony for shots of the Tesla below. She posted them right there at the table, fingers flying over the screen, with a proud caption, "Grandniece bought a beautiful home in Little Rock." She tagged the entire Lane side of the family before I could suggest otherwise. I watched the likes roll in from distant relatives, a strange knot forming in my stomach that I couldn't quite name. The warmth of the night lingered, but so did a faint unease about who might be watching from afar. That same evening, Reed and I lounged on the couch with takeout containers scattered across the coffee table, scrolling mindlessly through our phones while a muted movie played in the background. He paused on his feet, eyebrows lifting as he turned the screen toward me. "Your aunt posted something, looks like the visit." The photos from earlier filled the display, the open living area bathed in golden hour light, the kitchen counter with its marble gleam, and the Tesla parked neatly below, all under Aunt Beatrice's enthusiastic caption, tagging half the family. Notifications pinged steadily as likes and comments poured in from cousins and old neighbors. Before I could process the exposure, a new message notification slid down from Mom. "Beautiful home. We need to talk about a family emergency." The words sat heavy, demanding attention. I tapped to open the thread, but no further explanation followed, just those 8 words hanging like a threat. My thumb hovered, then dialed her number out of reflex more than desire. She answered on the first ring, voice tight with urgency. "Isabelle, finally. Listen, Colton's in deep with credit card debt again, and your dad threw out his back last week. Needs those expensive pain meds the insurance won't cover. We're looking at $25,000 to get everything squared away. She rattled off the figure like ordering coffee, no pause for breath or question. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, the room suddenly smaller. Mom, I don't have that kind of money to give. A sharp inhale on her end. Don't play games. We saw the pictures, nice place, fancy car. You can spare it for family. It's not spare change, I said, firmness creeping in. I worked for every cent and I'm not bailing out Colton's habits or Dad's bills. Her tone flipped to ice. Fine. We'll handle this face to face. We're coming down Tuesday from Springfield. The line clicked dead, leaving the dial tone buzzing in my ear. I lowered the phone slowly, hands trembling as the reality sank in. They were actually planning to show up at my door. Minutes later, another call lit the screen. Uncle Morris. I answered, bracing. Hey, Uncle Morris. Kiddo, I just heard from your mom. She's fired up and packing bags for Tuesday. Beatrice tried to calm her, but you know how that goes. Stay strong, whatever you decide. His voice carried the steady calm I needed, a lifeline across the miles. I thanked him and hung up, mind racing. Reed set his phone aside, watching me closely without pushing. I opened my laptop on the dining table, pulling up bank statements, credit reports I had requested on Colton months ago, out of lingering worry, and medical bills Dad had emailed once before going silent. The numbers painted a clear picture: Colton's gambling tab stacked high, Dad's back issue tied to an old work injury with partial coverage. No emergency, just the same patterns. I printed page after page, organizing them into a folder that felt like armor. Reed moved to sit beside me, his presence quiet but solid. He didn't offer advice or solutions, just reached over and laced his fingers through mine, a silent anchor as the printer whirred and the weight of Tuesday loomed closer. Tuesday arrived too quickly, the morning sun doing little to ease the knot in my stomach as I paced the living room with my phone clutched tight. The intercom buzzed at exactly 10 sharp, an insistent announcing their arrival in the lobby. I buzzed them up, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out, and positioned myself by the door with Reed, waiting quietly in the bedroom out of sight. The knock came heavy, 3 rapid thuds that echoed through the condo. I opened it to find Mom leading the charge, eyes already red-rimmed, Dad trailing behind with a slight limp, and Colton bringing up the rear, arms crossed and jaw set. They filed in without invitation, Mom collapsing onto the couch, as if the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. "Oh, Isabelle," she wailed, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue pulled from her purse. "Your father is in so much pain from his back, and we can't afford the treatments without your help." Dad nodded solemnly, easing into an armchair like every movement cost him dearly, while Colton hovered near the window, glaring at the city view as if it offended him. I stayed standing, phone in hand. "Sit down if you want, but let's cut the drama. I know why you're here." Colton spun around, face twisting. "You think you're better than us now? Living in this palace, driving that car, and you won't save your own brother, selfish bitch." His words spat out, venom dripping, but I refused to flinch. Mom joined in, voice rising to a sob. "How can you be so heartless? Family comes first." I unlocked my phone and swiped through the gallery, pulling up screenshots I had saved months ago, bank alerts showing the home equity line, maxed out gambling app transaction logs in Colton's name, totaling tens of thousands, foreclosure warnings from the lender. "This isn't about back pain meds," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. Dad signed the house over to cover Colton's betting losses. Again. No doctor bills, no life-saving drugs, just more debt from the same sites he swore he quit. I turned the screen toward them, zooming in on the dates and amounts. Dad shifted uncomfortably, avoiding the display while Colton's face flushed dark red. "Those are private." "How dare you snoop?" "I didn't snoop," I replied. "Push notifications, emails you both sent when you thought I'd cave public records," I screenshotted. "It's all here on my phone." Mom reached for the device, but I pulled it back. The room hung in tense silence, broken only by the distant hum of traffic 15 floors below. My phone vibrated in my hand, the ringtone cutting through like a lifeline. Irene Valdez's name flashed on the screen. My boss. I answered on speaker without thinking, needing the interruption. Isabelle, perfect timing. Irene's voice filled the room, professional and warm. The executive team reviewed the quarterly results, and your redesign project crushed every metric. We're giving you a significant bonus enough to make your eyes water and promoting you to lead designer effective immediately. Congratulations. The words boomed in the quiet space. Mom's mouth fell open, tissue forgotten. Dad's head snapped up, eyes wide. Colton stood frozen, the color draining from his anger to shock. I muted the call briefly to thank Irene, then unmuted. That's incredible, thank you. She promised details in email and hung up, leaving the echo of success hanging in the air. I turned back to them, empowered by the timing. See, I earn what I have. And not $1 goes to enabling this cycle. Get out now, Mom stammered. But the house. Out, I repeated, pointing to the door. Colton muttered something under his breath but moved first, yanking the handle. Dad followed slowly, Mom trailing with fresh tears that looked more frustrated than sad. I closed the door behind them with a firm slam that rattled the frame, locking it for good measure. Reed emerged from the bedroom, crossing the room in a few strides to wrap his arms around me. You're free now, he whispered against my hair, holding tight as the tension melted from my shoulders. I exhaled long and deep, the relief washing over me like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. The days after blurred into calm as I blocked every number tied to Mom, Dad, and Colton, then called the building manager to change the condo locks the same afternoon. The new key slid into place with a satisfying click. The deadbolt turning smooth and final, a small but solid barrier against the chaos I had finally shut out. Notifications stopped pinging entirely. The phone stayed quiet during dinners with Reed, where we talked about everything and nothing, and sleep came deep and uninterrupted without the dread of another surprise visit. Work flowed smoother too, the promotion opening doors to projects that challenged and excited me in equal measure, late nights now filled with creative breakthroughs instead of worry. 3 months slipped by in that peaceful rhythm until a handwritten envelope arrived in the mail, the familiar scrawl of Aunt Beatrice on the front, carrying the faint scent of old paper and ink. I opened it at the kitchen island with Reed pouring coffee nearby, unfolding 2 pages filled with careful cursive and a pressed wildflower tucked in the corner. Uncle Morris had added a postscript in his blocky print at the bottom. They wrote without drama, just facts. The bank foreclosed on the old house in Springfield, Missouri. After missed payments piled too high, Mom and Dad now renting a cramped 1-bedroom on the south side of town. With peeling wallpaper, Colton enrolled in a gambling addiction program and crashing on a friend's worn-out couch, while attending meetings nightly and working odd jobs to cover dues. No pleas for help. No blame, just an update from people who still cared enough to share the truth. I read it twice, the words settling without the sting I expected, almost like reading about strangers. Reed glanced over my shoulder, nodding when I suggested inviting them down for the weekend. Aunt Beatrice replied to my text within minutes, thrilled at the chance to see the city again and escape the quiet of their temporary routine. They arrived Friday evening with a cooler of homemade oatmeal raisin cookies and stories filling the condo with easy chatter that chased away any lingering shadows from the past. Saturday morning, we wandered the downtown farmers market baskets, swinging as we picked out ripe tomatoes and fresh basil Morris, haggling good-naturedly with a vendor over peaches. By night, we cooked together, Morris grilling thick steaks on the balcony, while the skyline twinkled below, Beatrice showing Reed her secret for garlic mashed potatoes with a splash of cream, the kitchen alive with overlapping laughter and the rich aroma of butter melting into starch. We ate around the table with plates piled high, passing the salad bowl, and a bottle of smooth red wine, trading memories of quieter family gatherings before everything fractured into demands and silence. No tension hung in the air, just the warmth of people choosing to show up without strings attached. As dessert, Beatrice's warm apple crisp topped with vanilla bean ice cream disappeared. I looked around and felt the shift deep inside. These were the connections that mattered, built on respect rather than obligation. The realization crystallized over the following weeks as I mentored a junior designer who reminded me of my younger self, full of ideas but unsure of her worth. True family isn't defined by blood but by who stands beside you when the storm hits and stays for the sunshine, after who celebrates your wins without keeping score. I had that now with Reed planning weekend getaways to hot springs, my team at work throwing an impromptu cake party for the latest launch, and Aunt Beatrice and Uncle Morris calling just to check in or share a silly joke. Freedom tasted like mornings without guilt, evenings filled with genuine smiles, and a future I shaped on my own terms without apology. For Mom, Dad, and Colton, the consequences were stark and unavoidable: a lost home to foreclosure credit in ruins, and the hard road of recovery that Colton finally walked alone after hitting bottom. Their choices led there, not mine, and the fallout served as a warning written in empty rooms and overdue notices. Viewers, the lesson is simple: set boundaries. Early, protect your peace fiercely, and surround yourself with those who lift you up instead of pulling you down. If this story resonated, thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to the end. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Subscribe for more real-life stories. I read every response.